Hello everyone and welcome to Sinful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the Grey. Today's video, we're going to talk about Stormcast Eternal units, and in particular, Stormcast Eternal units inside Cities of Sigmar. Now, the reason we're doing this is because the vast majority of Cities of Sigmar sub-factions allow you to take 1 in 4 of your units as a Stormcast Eternals unit. This is known as the Stormkeep rule, and the only city that does not get access to this is the sort of not City of Sigmar Harkuron from Broken Realms Morathi. All the others, including both Misthaven from Broken Realms Morathi and Settlers Gain from Broken Realms Teclis, get access to these Stormkeep rules, which allow them to take 1 in 4 units of Stormcast within their army. So what I thought we'd do today is we'll look at some units of Stormcast that could be good uses in a bunch of variety of different cities lists. So I've got 10 different Stormcast Eternal units. Some of them I guess are bunches of units or such, but I've got 10 different things that I think you can have a look at that might work well in potential Cities of Sigmar armies. They can add a bit of variety to your painting desk, they can add a bit of variety to your overall look of the army, plus it's just really cool to build up a Stormkeep and build up some narrative to go along with your City of Sigmar. So let's get cracking into it though. This is going to be 10 Stormcast Eternal units that are great in Cities of Sigmar. Number 1, Dracothain Guard. Now, Dracothain Guard are a bunch of units sort of all lumped together in the one sort of grouping. So with Dracothain Guard, you have Tempestors, you have Concussors, you have Fulminators, and there's another one I'm missing, you have Desolators. There we go, got them all. And what they are is they are your Extremis Chamber Stormcast. They are the Dracoth riding Stormcast units. Now, there's a bunch of different ways you can use these within Cities of Sigmar. First of all, they have a 3-up save base and they reroll 1s thanks to their shields. So they're really great in something like Tempestar, where in turn 1 they're going to get +1 to that save, so they're going to be a 2-up rerollable save in that first turn with Tempestar. It's going to be really good because that extra movement's just going to give them that little bit more and hopefully get some first turn charges off with things like Fulminators and Concussors. Concussors especially can do some really tricksy stuff where they stop your opponents being able to pile in if they land some mortal wounds. On top of that, Dracothain Guard are really good inside Living City. They're one of the units that has a shooting attack. If you can pair a hero alongside them, the Dracothain Guard can shoot with their breath weapons and then move in and get hopefully a very short charge with potential reroll because that hero is already there right near them, so you can get Dracothain Guard in nice and quick. Really good once again for things like Concussors, who have some pile-in abilities where they can stop your opponent piling in, or things like Fulminators, which just have raw damage on the table. There's a bunch of other cool things you can do with them, and in general, like even double fighting with these in Hammerhall is another great option as well, but I feel it's Living City and Tempestar where you get the most out of your Dracothain Guard. Number 2, Aetherwings. Now, this one might seem a bit weird to some of you, but Aetherwings are a fantastic unit inside Cities of Sigmar. For 40 points, 3 models with a decent move and fly are amazing value. Regardless of all those rules that pair them really well with like Vanguard Raptors, that doesn't matter. It's that fly, that movement, and that ability to take objectives across the board, which sometimes cities do lack. What's also cool is Aetherwings can be really useful in the army building part of your army. Say you're really struggling to get those extra units or of say something else. So say you're playing Living City or Tempestar where you're trying to get an extra unit of Sylvaneth or Kharadron Overlords in and you're just not finding enough points available. Maybe you could find the 40 points. So say you've already got 1 Sylvaneth unit, you can then put in a unit of Aetherwings to sort of bulk you up and get you to the next points, that next allotment of 4 units so that you can get that other unit you're wanting in the army. They can also be really good for just in general being drop deniers, so you can deploy units of Aetherwings and force your opponent to have to deploy actual useful things on the table, because the Aetherwings have such decent movement and fly that they're really going to go wherever they want anyway, so it doesn't really matter where you deploy them. And if you do deploy them in an open place where your opponent can target them, he's targeting Aetherwings and not anything important within your army. Aetherwings have a ton of play, and there's a bunch of cool little things you can do with them with army building, deployment tactics, and in general just being able to play games with them. I've won games thanks to Aetherwings, and their movement and the ability to fly should never be overlooked. Number 3, Lord-Ordinator. He's fantastic because he gives +1 to hit to order war machines. What's really cool about the Lord-Ordinator is it stacks on top of things like the Celestial Arcanum, or he can be a cheaper alternative to said model. It's a great little piece to have in your army, and it's an option to play if you're not finding the points available to you in your potential list, especially with Greywater Fastness. Maybe you could swap that Hurricanum out for a Lord-Ordinator. You can easily make him quite survivable by making him your general and then giving him an honoured retinue around to keep him survivable, plus he'll be -1 to hit in there as well. There's a bunch of ways you can make this guy work around, but generally I do definitely think it is the artillery heavy Greywater Fastness where this guy is going to see play. It is just a nice piece to have around the armor, whether being an additional stack or being your main stack and playing a different sort of way with Greywater Fastness. Number 4, the big lad himself, the Stardrake. Now, what makes Stardrakes great is that they just are this massive amount of wounds that are really tough to break down. Generally, cities don't have many units like the Stardrake. While the Stardrake doesn't put out an awful lot of damage itself, it can withstand quite a fair bit. And it does have some cool mortal wound projection across the table, which cities can sometimes suffer from. There's a bunch of different things you can do with a Stardrake as well. In particular, the smaller version, the Templar version of the Stardrake, which actually has a bow. So this means he can be used inside of Living City, and you can then get him to charge easier by using the City Command ability to move forward after you shoot. There's a bunch of other cool things you can do with this model, and it just all relies, even Tempest Eye, where he's now going to be on that 2+ save because he's got a 3-up base, so he's going to be 2+ re-rolling ones, which is really fun to do. And then of course you've got the ability where he has some magical potential as well. He's obviously got the Lord of the Heavens ability and the Arcane Lineage, which he adds 1 to casting roll for friendly wizards while they hold within 18 inch of this model. In addition, you subtract 1 from enemy. So it could be a nice addition to really help push through that magic in your army as well. Maybe something to think of in a Hallowheart list. It'd be really cool to see how this model can affect your casting, and it'll give you an option to get additional bonuses you might not otherwise have thought of. Number 5, a wizard of choice, the Knight-Incantor. Now, for me, there's one reason, and one reason primarily, you take the Knight-Incantor, and that is his automatic Dispel. While cities do have some options for some fantastic offensive play in Magic, they don't really have that much of defensive stability. I mean, Hallowheart does have its 5+ ignore, but that's not always enough. Sometimes you want to guarantee that thing's not going to work, and make sure you're not having to roll that 5+ or 4+ in some cases. A Knight-Incantor gives you this ability. On top of that as well, it's a potential model to be your general for a Hallowheart army or even other cities. What's cool about using Stormcast in this way, and generally this applies to all Stormcast heroes, is that they do have a decent armor save, so giving them an honoured retinue along with a decent armor save and generally an extra wound at times as well, or 2 or 3 if they're the mounted variants, can be a good way to get that little bit more survivable general. Number 6, we're sticking with wizards, and the Lord-Arcanum is another fantastic choice to use in Cities of Sigmar. First of all, the foot variant has a command ability which allows him to move some endless spells out of phase. So this is a great thing in, say, Hallowheart, or even other ones like Settlers Game where you are using endless spells more. On top of that as well, you've got the other variants of this, which you have the Lord-Arcanum on Tauralong, which is the only way you can get a triple caster inside Hallowheart, which is really cool. Or you have the variant on the Gryph-Charger, which is very mobile. That movement ability with the Gryph-Charger Lord-Arcanum really makes him a threat all the way across the board and can really help you in hero-focused scenarios to get a hero you might not otherwise be able to get there normally with a city's army, because generally you're quite slow. But you've also got the option on the Dracothain, which pairs really well with other things in the army as well, and is another fast-moving option, though it hits a little bit harder and not quite as fast as the Arcanum on the Gryph-Charger. Number 7, the Celestant-Prime. Now, for me, the Celestant-Prime is best in one particular city, and that is Hammerhall. So, the Celestant-Prime generally has an issue where he generally dies after he does his first major attack. Now, what Hammerhall allows you to do is it has a command ability when you're in your opponent's deployment zone, you can pile in and attack twice. This is really great with the Celestant-Prime. As he's a hero, he can use this himself, and he can guarantee he gets that charge in. Meaning he gets 2 swings of Galmaraz, so he can pile in twice. If you use this effectively, he can really do some damage in your opponent's backfield and really swing the games late for you. There's been some really great usage of this, and I first saw this used at CanCon a couple of years ago, watching the stream and seeing this guy do some absolute work. It's definitely a great strategy, and not only on top of that, he's an absolutely fantastic centerpiece for your army. With these big pieces as well, it's always worth remembering, like him and the Stardrake, that you aren't using ally points. You're not restricted to points like allies, so you can bring in these 1 in 4, and generally you might be able to get 2 Stormcast Eternal units into your average city's army. which means you can go above that 400 point threshold. So you can take a Celestant-Prime and a decent unit of something else quite easily. Number 8, Vanguard Raptors. Now, these have a bunch of different uses in the army, and I do think both variations can see play. You've got the ability to up their wound shot, which means you could be on 2s and 2s with the long strike crossbows in something like Tempestar, and the ability to run and charge, really making sure there's nothing on the board you can't touch. But in addition, you could also choose to do something like the Hurricane crossbows, where they've got a multitude of different shots. Redeploying them in something like Hallowheart with a Soul Screen Bridge means they're not moving and they can make really great use. Generally, you're going to have a Hurricane in a list like that, or in Settler's Gain, which meaning you can deploy them around the table. Settler's Gain on top of this has a bunch of different spells you can use to try and push that magic across as well and get more to hit rolls. So you can generally be like 2s and 4s with those 9 shots coming out of them in a Settler's Gain army and really easily getting them in range if you've got something like Techless auto casting that Soul Screen Bridge as well. There's a bunch of cool things you can do with this, and there's just a bunch of ways you can run Vanguard Raptors, both variations of the army, and not only that, but you can combine them with cheap units of Aetherwings to get that same combo of protection you have inside a Stormcast Eternals army. Number 9, the Humble Liberator, or potentially Sequitors as well. I really do think there's a place, especially for Liberators who are a just generic battle line option, for a good unit in cities. They are 90 points for 5 models on a 4-up save that reroll 1s. This is a decent unit, and you can potentially get a little bit of damage in there with the Grand Hammer as well on the Prime, making it 3 attacks that'll be generally 4s and 3s, Ren 1 damage 2, so they can do a little bit more work. This is a very decent option to help you build up your army, and it can be a great way to include some Stormcast units that are just going to feel the same sort of role. You can actually make them quite defensible in a cities list as well. If you take, say, Tempest Eye and then you use your second Stormcast Eternal units to, say, a Lord Castellan, you can get a big blob of these up to a very decent armor save early game and just get them on the middle of the board and help you control the board early game. There's a bunch of different things you can do, and Sequitors can do a lot of the things that I've just mentioned as well through various ways. However, Sequitors aren't pure battle line like Liberators, which is why I put them in here instead of Sequitors as the main focus. Liberators, the pure battle line thing, just makes them a solid option, and they always will be regardless of what city you are playing. Lastly, Evocators in at number 10. I think both variations of Evocators are definitely a very viable option within Cities of Sigmar, in particular in Hallowheart. Remembering they'll get an additional cast, so there will be 2 cast Evocators within your force, and they'll get access to a bunch of different spells. You can get things like the +1 to wound out of Hallowheart, which can really make those Evocators and Dracothains quite scary. In addition, they can be quite more offensive, being able to move across the table quickly on their Dracothains and get up and do some damage. They pair really well with the Lord-Arcanum on Dracothain as well, who can make them quite a nasty unit in a Hallowheart list that people might otherwise think does not have a generic sort of hammer in combat. Evocators are just great. They've got mortal wound output, and they've got a decent armor save as well. And the Evocators and Dracothains can move around the table rather well. I think Evocators definitely are just a great unit, and they've got a bunch of different uses. Even double piling in like a unit of 10 within Hammerhall is a fantastic option to play inside Cities of Sigmar. Well, thank you all for watching. We hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to come chat more with me and other members of our little community here at Sinful Gaming, you can do so by coming and joining our Discord server, which you'll find a link to in the description of the video. While you're on YouTube as well, go check out my featured channel section, which contains a bunch of other fantastic Age of Sigmar content creators doing everything from battle reports, tactical videos, lore videos, painting tutorials, and more besides that. Lastly though, we'd like to give a shout out to everyone who helps support the channel via Patreon and YouTube members. Thank you to James, AJC, JC, Christian Weir, Soren, Kenny Lowell, Outer and Shot First, Cowspawn, James Crowder, and Andrew Bowen. Thank you all so much for your support. And if you'd like to help support the channel like these fine people do, you can do so by clicking once again on the links down in the description of the video to either YouTube members or Patreon. Thank you all for supporting the channel though, watching the content. Have a nice day, stay safe, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the Grey. Ciao for now.